Guys, this is for APUSH Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. We are now in the APUSH course guidebook unit 4, which is dealing with War 1812, effects of War 1812. We're now getting into after the War 1812 today with Monroe's presidency. We're still in the reading review packet 3, but we're about to transition over to packet 4 here in a second. So now we're looking at Monroe's presidency. The demise of the Federalists briefly led to the United States with only one political party. This period of unity is referred to as the era of good feelings, although the term belays the growing tension created by economic development and increased sectionalism. During this period, Chief Justice John Marshall's rulings continued to strengthen the federal government and its primacy. For example, he ruled in McCulloch v. Maryland that the states could not tax the national bank, thus establishing the precedence of national law over state law. The good feelings nearly came to an abrupt end in 1819 when a financial scare called the Panic of 1819 threw the American economy into turmoil. The panic followed a period of economic growth, inflation, and land speculation, all of which had destabilized the economy. When the National Bank called in its loans, many borrowers couldn't repay them. The consequences included numerous mortgage foreclosures and business failures. Many people were thrown into poverty. Nonetheless, no nationally organized political opposition resulted from the panic, and Monroe easily won re-election in 1820. The post-war period had also ushered in a new wave of westward expansion. As Secretary of State under James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, son of former President John Adams, deftly negotiated a number of treaties that fixed U.S. borders and opened new territories. The United States acquired Florida from the Spanish by the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819. Adams also had to handle international tensions caused by a series of revolutions in Central America and South America as the inhabitants of those regions won their independence from Spain. Ultimately, events compelled Monroe and Adams to recognize the new nations. At the same time, they decided that America should assert its authority over the Western Hemisphere. The result was the Monroe Doctrine, a policy of mutual and non-interference. You stay out of the Americas, Monroe told Europe, and we'll stay out of your squabbles. The Monroe Doctrine also claimed America's right to intervene anywhere in its own hemisphere if it felt security was threatened. No European country tried to intercede in the Americas following Monroe's declaration, and so the Monroe Doctrine appeared to work. No one, however, was afraid of the American military. Spain, France, and others stayed out of the Western Hemisphere because the powerful British Navy made sure they did. The Monroe Doctrine is the first of several doctrines you should know for the AP exam. In general, these doctrines were presidential statements that became foreign policy. For example, in 1823, President Monroe warned European nations that the Western Hemisphere was close to future colonization. This policy, together with the advice given in Washington's farewell address, secured American neutrality all the way until World War I. The Truman Doctrine issued at the end of World War II is especially important, but you should you should also familiarize yourself with the Eisenhower Doctrine, the Nixon Doctrine, and the most recently Bush Doctrine. The new period of expansion resulted in a national debate over slavery, as would every period of expansion to follow until the Civil War resolved the slavery question. In 1820, the Union consisted of 22 states. 11 allowed slavery, 11 prohibited it. Missouri was the first state to be carved out of Louisiana Purchase, and its application for statehood threatened the balance, particularly in the U.S. Senate. Henry Clay brokered the Missouri Compromise, which 1. Admitted Missouri as a slave state, 2. Carved out a piece of Massachusetts, Maine, and admitted Maine as a free state, and 3. Drew a line along the 3630 parallel across Louisiana Territory, which at this time, remember, only goes to Oklahoma area because all that southwest area is still owned by Mexico right now. And 4. It established the southern border of Missouri as the northernmost point at which slavery could be allowed in the western territories of the United States, except, of course, Missouri itself, which in a way violated the Missouri Compromise since it was north of the line. The Compromise was the first in a series of measures forestalling the Civil War. It also split the powerful Democratic-Republican coalition, ending its 20-year coalition of national politics. Okay, so that's going to end Packet 3, which is creating a functioning government. We're now moving to Packet 4, which is beginnings of modern American democracy. We're still in the AP course guidebook, Unit 4, but just be aware that we're transitioning now to a new packet. Okay, let me zoom in here so I can read this a little bit easier. All right, so this is political events and social developments, the election of 1824, and John Quincy Adams' presidency. The election of 1824 marked a major turning point in the presidential elections. Prior to 1824, electors who selected the president in the Electoral College had been chosen by a variety of methods. State legislatures chose many electors, although with each election the number of states using this method decreased. By 24, a majority of states allowed voters to choose their presidential electors directly. In early elections, congressional caucuses, or groups of U.S. congressmen, had chosen their party's nominees, and electors, often chosen by the same congressmen or by their friends, had not challenged their choices. With more people voting directly for presidential elections, or electors, however, there was less and less voter support for the candidates nominated by party leaders in this era before primaries and caucuses. When the Democratic-Republican caucus chose William H. Crawford in 1824, others among John Quincy Adams, Henry Clay, and Andrew Jackson decided to challenge the nomination. Their opposition, along with their accusations that the party caucuses were undemocratic, brought about the demise of the caucus system. Of the four, Andrew Jackson received the greatest number of popular votes and electoral votes. However, as none of the four had won majority, the election was decided by the House of Representatives. There, the Speaker of the House, Clay, threw his support to Adams, thereby handing Adams the victory. Adams subsequently named Clay Secretary of State, a position which previous holders included Adams, Monroe, and Jefferson, and that was therefore considered the gateway to the presidency. Jackson and other opponents of Clay's appointment alleged that Adams and Clay had struck a corrupt bargain and immediately vowed to see both removed in the election of 1828. Adams' presidency was impeded by a contrary Congress. Remember, more congressmen had initially supported Jackson and Adams. He had also been a Federalist congressman and was the son of a Federalist president, and every effort he made to strengthen the central government was thus viewed with deep suspicion. Jackson's supporters strongly favored states' rights and thwarted all of Adams' efforts to initiate improvements through the federal government. His proposals to impose new protective tariffs, build interstate highways, and establish federal schools and research centers were all met with steep opposition, though he did go on to found a naval college and become an influential congressman after he was president. All right, has a little sidebar, John Quincy Adams and postmillennialism. Postmillennialism was a belief widespread among 19th century Christians that Jesus would return only after a 1,000-year golden age brought about by humankind. It was therefore a major progressive force in America with adherents such as John Quincy Adams. Here is our sixth president calling for the United States to adopt the metric system in the 1820s. So I'm not going to go into that, but he called for the metric system, just FYI. Okay, the Jacksonian presidency and Jacksonian democracy. Despite the political incorrectness of his policies by today's standards and reevaluation of Andrew Jackson by modern historians, the era of Jackson as president is an important period in American history. There are always more than a few multi-choice questions on this material, and often one of the essay questions pertains to Jackson's administration or the concept of Jacksonian democracy, which is very true. There's always Jacksonian democracy stuff. Fears that he had denied the presidency in 1824 despite winning a plurality of the vote, more votes than any other candidate, but short of the majority. Jackson put together a support network to assure wide popular support next time. A coalition of state political organizations, newspaper publishers, and other community leaders rallied around the campaign. That group became the present-day Democratic Party. The campaign was vicious. While the candidates themselves stayed out of the fray, no presidential candidate would campaign on his own behalf until Stephen Douglas in 1860. Their surrogates showed no restraint in slinging mud. Jackson's men accused Adams of being a corrupt career politician, while Adams' men accused Jackson of being a stupid and violent drunkard. Jackson was particularly infuriated by accusations that his wife was a bigamist, which was technically true, as he had married Jackson before her divorce was final, because she left an abusive husband. The Coffin Handbill accused Jackson of murdering his enlisted men during the Indian Wars. Those who consider today's smear campaigns unprecedented haven't studied much American history, which is very true. In 1828, Jackson won the election by a large margin. In doing so, he became the first president who wasn't born either in Virginia or named Adams. He was considered to have the interests of the West in mind and was seen as the epitome of self-made man, which is the whole Jacksonian democracy appeal. Among his first acts, he dismissed numerous government officials and replaced them with political supporters, while almost every one of his predecessors had done exactly the same thing. Because Jackson was the first true outsider president, administration jobs had been previously circulated among a relatively insular circle of political supporters fell into new hands. Those who lost power criticized Jackson, but so too did the public, who noticed that for the first time the cronyism already inherent in their government. Trading jobs for political favors came to be known as the spoils system, also sometimes referred to as patronage. All right, we're going to stop there for your video.